Claire Bennett walked into my auto shop at 7 minutes past closing, wearing a rain-darkened coat and the expression of someone who had practiced being brave all day and had finally run out of strength. "I heard you need a service manager," she said. 3 years earlier, Claire had been my boss. She had signed the paper that ended my career at the largest dealership group in North Carolina, then watched security escort me out without a word. Now she stood between my tool chests and asked me for a job. I should have said no. Instead, I heard myself answer, "I don't want an employee, Claire. I want a wife." Before I tell you what she said, take a moment to subscribe and stay with me. Sometimes the sentence that sounds most foolish is the one that finally forces two people to tell the truth. My name is Ethan Cole. I was 32 years old and owned Cole Motor Works, a 4-bay repair shop on the edge of Asheville, North Carolina. I had built it out of an abandoned tire warehouse with a loan, my late father's tools, and more stubbornness than good sense. I had never married. My last serious relationship ended shortly after I lost my dealership job, when my girlfriend decided uncertainty was a character flaw. Since then, I had kept my life simple: engines, invoices, Sunday dinner with my Aunt Mavis, and no promises I could not measure with a torque wrench. Claire was 28. At Bennett Knox Automotive, she had become the youngest operations director in the company and for 18 difficult months, my direct supervisor. She was brilliant, controlled, and impossible to read. I had admired her before I resented her, and I had loved her long before I admitted either feeling to myself. Her mouth parted after my ridiculous declaration. Rain tapped the metal roof. In the office behind her, the old wall clock clicked toward 6. "That," she said carefully, "is either the worst job interview in history or a very strange revenge fantasy." Heat climbed my neck. It came out wrong. I would be fascinated to hear the version that comes out right. I looked past her toward the glass door where water ran down the logo I had painted myself. I could repair a transmission with half the manual missing, but there was no graceful repair for what I had just said. "You asked whether I needed a service manager," I said. "I don't. Not really. I need someone who will stand beside me when things get bad, tell me when I'm being an idiot, and care whether this place survives for reasons that have nothing to do with a paycheck. I'm tired of arrangements where everybody keeps one hand on the exit." Claire studied me. "And you translated that into wife?" "I warned you it came out wrong." For the first time, the corner of her mouth moved. It was not quite a smile. Then she set a plain cardboard file box on my counter. The bottom had softened from the rain. "I have enough money for 11 days at the motel on Patton Avenue," she said. "My apartment in Charlotte is gone. My father's company is in receivership. My fiancé is facing federal charges, and half the dealerships in the state believe I helped him steal from them. So if you're finished proposing badly, I really am asking for work." The word fiancé hit an old bruise, but the rest of her sentence pushed it aside. "Parker Knox?" I asked. "He hasn't been my fiancé for 6 months. I stared at the box. Her entire professional life appeared to fit inside it. Luis Torres, my lead technician, had left 10 minutes earlier. The lifts were empty, the compressors silent, and the shop suddenly felt too large for 2 people. "Why me?" I asked. "Because you know I can run a service department. I also know you can fire a man without looking him in the eye." The almost smile disappeared. "I looked at you, Ethan." "No, you looked at the paper?" She took that without flinching. "Then maybe I came because you're the one person whose opinion of me can still hurt." That answer was too honest for the woman I remembered. I walked to the side door and locked it. "Coffee?" "I'm not asking for charity. It's terrible coffee. Nobody would confuse it with charity." She followed me into the office where 2 mismatched chairs faced a desk made from an old butcher block workbench. I poured from the pot and watched her wrap both hands around the mug as if warmth had become a luxury. I had imagined meeting Claire again many times. In some versions, I was successful enough that she regretted underestimating me. In others, she apologized, and I dismissed her with perfect indifference. None of those fantasies included damp hair, exhausted eyes, and 11 days of motel money. What happened to Bennett Knox? I asked. Parker used a parts subsidiary to inflate invoices and move money between dealerships. When lenders discovered the losses, he blamed accounting errors. Then he blamed me. Did you sign anything? Too many things. That was my job. Did you know? Not until it was already happening. She looked directly at me. I know how that sounds. It sounded exactly like the explanation I had once wanted from her. I leaned against the filing cabinet. The service manager position was never advertised. Her fingers tightened around the mug. I told a parts supplier I might hire one, I continued. My front desk assistant heard it, and Asheville apparently turned it into public information. So you don't need me. I need help, but I can't put you on payroll. Because you hate me. Because I have 6 weeks to satisfy a bank review, replace 2 diagnostic systems, and prove our commercial accounts are profitable. If I fail, Blue Ridge Mobility can buy the note and take the property. Hiring a former executive under investigation would give the bank one more reason to call me reckless. Claire sat straighter. Hardship had not erased the manager in her. It had merely hidden her under wet wool. Your commercial accounts are not profitable, she said. I frowned. You haven't seen my books. I saw 3 county fleet trucks in your lot, each occupying space after hours. Your labor board lists discounted municipal rates, and the transmission bay has a vehicle waiting on parts. You're financing slow-paying clients with your cash flow. I hated how quickly she saw it. She reached into the box and pulled out a legal pad. Give me 48 hours. No payroll. I'll review your operation and show you where you're losing money. If I'm wrong, I leave. If I'm right, you give me a temporary consulting agreement that the bank can approve. And if the bank refuses, then you still get the review. You said you wouldn't take charity. I won't. You can pay me when the shop survives. There it was again. Not an employee asking permission, but the woman who had once commanded 300 people and made senior managers stop talking when she entered a room. I should have protected myself. Instead, I slid the spare office key across the desk. 48 hours, I said. She looked at the key but did not touch it. And the wife comment? Temporary insanity. Good. She picked up the key. Because I don't work for men who confuse desperation with consent. The shame in my face must have been obvious. She softened slightly. But for the record, Ethan, I understood what you meant. What did I mean? That you don't trust anyone who can leave. Then she carried her box into my office, as if she had not just identified the central weakness of my adult life. The next morning, I arrived at 6 and found every light on. Claire sat cross-legged on the office floor, surrounded by invoices, payroll reports, warranty claims, and 3 empty coffee cups. She had exchanged her damp coat for a navy sweater and tied her hair back with a rubber band from my supply drawer. You still organize vendor statements alphabetically, she said without looking up. You still enter buildings before reasonable people wake up. Reasonable people don't own auto shops. I handed her a biscuit from the diner down the road. She accepted it after a brief hesitation. By 8, she had discovered that my county fleet contract lost an average of $73 per vehicle. By 10, she found duplicate software subscriptions costing $9,000 a year. At noon, she stood in front of my technicians and asked them why our comeback rate had risen for 3 consecutive months. Nobody answered. Luis folded his arms. He was 45, patient with engines, suspicious of management, and loyal to me in the way only someone who had helped pour your first concrete floor could be loyal. Maybe because we're fixing cars instead of making charts, he said. Claire nodded. Then let's fix one. She walked to Bay 3, where a delivery van had returned with the same intermittent electrical failure we had supposedly repaired twice. She did not pretend to be a technician. Instead, she asked Luis to explain every test he had run. 10 minutes later, she noticed that the work orders used 2 different unit numbers for the same van. The prior service history had been split between them, hiding a pattern of water intrusion after heavy rain. Luis stared at the screen, then at her. That database has been wrong for 4 years, he said. Yes, she replied. Which means the problem is not your repair. It's the information reaching your bay. By the end of the day, Luis had stopped calling her the corporate lady. He did not call her Claire yet, but progress in a garage is measured in smaller increments than most people understand. She stayed until 7. I found her outside behind the shop, looking at a faded red 1968 Mustang under a canvas cover. "That's your father's car," she said. I stopped beside her. "How do you remember that?" "You kept a photograph of it in your toolbox at Bennett Knox." The Mustang had belonged to my father from the summer he turned 19 until the winter cancer made him too weak to drive. We had planned to restore it together. After he died, I moved it from one rented garage to another, always promising I would begin when business slowed down. Business never slowed down. Claire lifted the corner of the cover, revealing primer, rust, and the chrome horse emblem he had polished every Sunday. "Does it run?" she asked. "It complains." "So do you." That sounded like an employee speaking to her boss. She let the cover fall. "Good thing I'm an unpaid consultant." I laughed before I could stop myself. Claire looked at me then. Truly looked. And something fragile passed between us. It was not forgiveness. It was recognition. The memory of two people who had once known how to make each other laugh before ambition, fear, and silence turned every conversation into a negotiation. She broke eye contact first. "The motel charges by the week," she said. "I need an answer tomorrow." I nodded. "You'll have one." That night, I slept badly. Not because I doubted her numbers. They were painfully accurate. I slept badly because having Claire in my shop felt natural, in ways resentment had never managed to erase. At Bennett Knox, I had been a diagnostic specialist with a reputation for solving problems nobody else wanted. Claire had been promoted over men twice her age, including some who believed her last name explained everything. She had responded by working longer, knowing more, and showing less emotion than anyone around her. We became allies during a disastrous software conversion. For 6 weeks, we ate takeout over spreadsheets and argued about service times until midnight. She learned that I hated raisins and remembered my father's surgery dates. I learned that she rubbed the inside of her wrist when she was anxious and kept peppermint tea in her desk because coffee made her hands shake. One night, after we recovered a week of missing repair orders, she fell asleep at the conference table with her cheek against her folded arm. I draped my jacket over her shoulders and realized I was in love with my boss. 3 months later, Parker Knox announced their engagement at the company holiday party. Claire saw me leave before the champagne was poured. She never asked why. The following spring, security found stolen performance parts in a storage unit rented under my employee credentials. I denied everything. Claire chaired the internal review. She asked precise questions, showed no expression, and signed my termination before lunch. My career ended in 27 minutes. Remembering it made the next morning harder. Claire had prepared a 12-page recovery plan. The first page cut her own proposed compensation in half. "I won't sign this," I said. "You can afford that amount after 30 days. "I mean the compensation. It's too low. It's what the shop can support." "I'm not asking what the shop can support. I'm asking what your work is worth." Her eyes lifted. "That distinction would have surprised the man I used to work for," she said. "I'm not him." "No," she answered quietly. "You never were." I offered her a 3-month consulting contract, contingent on bank approval, with a performance bonus tied to the accounts she improved. She read every line, changed to, and signed. Then I did something even less sensible. "My aunt has an apartment over her detached garage," I said. "It's empty. You can stay there until you get settled." Claire's pen stopped. "I can pay rent." "Mavis will insist." "Does she know who I am?" "She knows you were my boss." "Does she know I fired you?" "She has strong opinions about you." Claire closed the folder. "Then perhaps the motel is safer. My aunt is 71 and carries peppermints, not weapons." "You have clearly never met a Southern woman defending her nephew." She was right about that. Mavis met Claire that evening on the gravel drive beside her garden. My aunt was small, silver-haired, and capable of turning silence into a cross-examination. She looked Claire up and down, then glanced at the single suitcase beside her. "You're younger than I expected," Mavis said. Claire shifted her grip on the handle. "I'm not sure whether that helps me." "It doesn't. Aunt Mavis." She ignored me. "Did you fire my nephew?" "Yes, ma'am." "Was he guilty?" "No." The answer came so fast that I felt it in my chest. Mavis's eyes narrowed. Then why did you do it? Claire looked at me. Because I was a coward in a room full of powerful men. My aunt considered that for several seconds, then took the suitcase from her. The apartment needs dusting, she said. Rent is $400 a month and Sunday supper is mandatory. We can discuss cowardice after chicken and dumplings. That was Mavis's version of mercy. Over the next 3 weeks, Claire changed the rhythm of Cole Motor Works. She renegotiated the fleet contract without humiliating the county manager. She created a parts approval system that reduced delays. She convinced me to stop discounting labor every time a customer looked worried, then helped establish a small hardship fund, so compassion no longer came out of payroll. She also made enemies. Your problem, she told me one afternoon, is that you want everyone to leave happy. That sounds like a good business goal? It's an impossible life goal. We were standing over the estimate for June Holloway, a nurse with a 12-year-old minivan and 2 children. The transmission repair cost more than the van was worth. I wanted to rebuild it at cost. Claire wanted to locate a reliable used vehicle through one of her former contacts. She needs transportation by Monday, I said. And if we repair this, she'll need another transmission next year because the frame is rusting and the cooling system is failing. We can't solve every problem by declaring the car dead. No. But we can stop making people pay to preserve what fear won't let them replace. The words landed beyond the van between us. I set down the estimate. Are we still talking about June's car? Claire's expression closed. Yes? She walked away before I could ask again. 2 days later, she found June a 6-year-old sedan from a retired teacher, arranged financing through a credit union, and persuaded the teacher to accept the minivan as a charitable trade. June cried in the parking lot. Claire pretended to be interested in the tire pressure until the moment passed. Watching her, I remembered why I had once trusted her judgment even when I disliked her decisions. At night, we began working on my father's Mustang. It started because Claire ordered a replacement scan tool for the shop and negotiated a price lower than I believed possible. When the shipment arrived, the vendor included a promotional credit. She used it to buy a set of body panel stands. You spent company credit on my personal car, I asked. I spent the credit on equipment the shop owns. Your car is merely the first patient. Luis volunteered to help with the engine if I promised not to tell anyone he cared. Mavis brought sandwiches. Even June's older son came by on Saturdays to sweep floors and learn how to label bolts. The Mustang became the place where Claire and I stopped talking like former enemies. We stripped the interior on a Tuesday night. Beneath the back seat, I found an old gas receipt with my father's handwriting on it. He had written a grocery list on the reverse. Coffee, bread, peaches, motor oil, anniversary card. I smiled until I saw the date. It was from the week before my mother left us. Claire sat on the concrete beside me. You never talked about her. There isn't much to say. She decided marriage and motherhood had made her invisible. One morning she packed a bag and drove west. Dad told me not to hate her, which made it easier to hate him for a while. How old were you? 11. She took the receipt gently and placed it in a clear parts envelope. Is that why you said it? She asked. Said what? That you wanted a wife instead of an employee. I sat back against the tire rack. Maybe. Employees are expected to leave when a better offer comes. So are unhappy spouses. I know. Do you? Her tone was not cruel, only tired. I looked at the half-empty shell of the Mustang. I know wanting someone to stay is not enough to make them stay. Claire folded her knees and rested her forearms on them. Under the bright shop lights, she looked younger than she had behind a corporate desk and older than she had any right to look at 28. Parker wanted a wife who made him look stable, she said. He liked my name, my resume, and the fact that I could repair problems before his father noticed them. He did not like me asking where money went. Why did you stay engaged? Because leaving would have meant admitting I had built my entire life around being useful to people who did not love me. I heard the echo of her comment about June's van. What changed? I asked. I found a second set of invoices, then I found your name. Every sound in the shop seemed to stop, though the compressor continued cycling in the next bay. My name where? Claire looked toward the office. Not tonight. I stood. You don't get to say that after 3 years. I need to show you, not explain it badly. You had 27 minutes to end my career. Take 27 minutes and tell me why. Pain crossed her face. Because Parker used your credentials to move stolen parts. I discovered it the morning of your review. My hands went cold. You knew. Yes. And you fired me anyway. His father had already contacted the police. Parker had planted purchase orders, access logs, and storage records. If the police took the case that day, you would have been arrested. So you protected me by making me look guilty? I terminated you for violation of access procedures, not theft. That kept the report internal for 48 hours. During those 48 hours, I copied the records that showed Parker's administrator account had changed your credentials. Where are those records? With a federal investigator now. I stared at her. Anger rose first because anger was familiar. Beneath it came something worse. The possibility that the moment I had used to prove Claire's betrayal had never meant what I thought it meant. Why didn't you tell me? Parker's father threatened to accuse you of conspiring with me if I contacted you. He knew about our late nights during the software conversion. He had photographs from the security cameras and messages that could be made to look personal. They were personal. Claire went still. I had not meant to say it, but once spoken, the truth seemed to clear the air. They were personal to me, I continued. Maybe not to you. Her eyes shone, but she did not look away. They were personal to me too. Then why Parker? Because you never asked me for anything. I laughed once without humor. That was your reason? No, that was my excuse. She stood. The reason was that Parker represented the life my father had trained me to want. He was approved, connected, predictable. You made me feel as if I might choose something for myself. And I had no practice doing that. I turned toward the Mustang because looking at her had become dangerous. You could have sent one message after I left. I wrote dozens, but you sent none. No. That is not protection, Claire. That is deciding for me. I know. The quiet way she said it took some of the force out of my anger without taking away its cause. She reached into her bag and placed a flash drive on the workbench. Copies of everything I gave the investigator, she said, including a statement I signed 6 months ago, admitting what I did during your termination. Read it before you decide whether I should remain here. Then she left the shop. I read until 2 in the morning. The files contained access logs, emails, altered invoices, and a recording of Parker telling an accountant to let Cole carry it if anybody asks. Claire's statement described how she had delayed the police referral, copied evidence, and anonymously directed an investigator toward the storage unit records. It also revealed that she had resigned from Bennett Knox before the company collapsed. Her father had begged her to stay quiet to preserve the family name. Parker had threatened to expose private messages between us. She had ended the engagement, turned over the evidence, and lost almost everything. One file was not legal evidence. It was a draft email addressed to me, dated 3 years earlier. Ethan, I did something today that may keep you out of jail and may make you hate me forever. I cannot decide which outcome frightens me more. The rest of the email was unfinished. At dawn, I drove to Mavis's house. Claire's apartment light was off, but I found her sitting on the back steps in sweatpants and a coat, watching fog settle over the garden. I held out the flash drive. You should have trusted me, I said. Yes, you should have told me. Yes, you saved me from being arrested. She looked down at her hands. Maybe. Or maybe I only delayed the damage. You lost your family's company by testifying. The company was already lost. I only stopped pretending it deserved to survive. I sat beside her, leaving a careful space between us. For several minutes, neither of us spoke. I spent 3 years hating you, I said. I know. It was easier than wondering why your opinion still mattered. Claire's breath trembled. What do you feel now? I don't know yet. That's fair. But I know I don't want you to leave. She turned to me. I mean the shop, I added too quickly. A faint smile appeared. Of course. In the apartment, Asheville, all of it. Ethan, gratitude is not the same as forgiveness. I'm not grateful. That sounds promising. I'm furious. Even better. This time I smiled. She leaned her shoulder against mine. It was the smallest contact, but after 3 years of absence, it felt more intimate than a kiss. I didn't come here only because I needed work, she said. I guessed that. I came because the investigator told me Parker might try to buy your loan through Blue Ridge Mobility. He wants control of this property. I straightened. Why? The original Bennett Knox data archive was stored on a server that disappeared during the receivership. Parker believes a backup drive was hidden in a vehicle your father bought at auction years ago. I looked at her. The Mustang. She nodded. Its vehicle identification number appears in a file transfer note. The restoration suddenly became more than memory. We returned to the shop before sunrise and began searching. The Mustang had been apart for weeks, but we searched as if the car might disappear before breakfast. Luis arrived at 6:15, took one look at the stripped interior, and asked why Claire was under the dashboard with a flashlight. "We may have a federal accounting archive hidden in the car," I said. He set down his coffee. I miss the days when our biggest problem was an oil leak. The transfer note Claire had found contained 3 details: the Mustang's identification number, the words cold storage, and a string of numbers that did not match any part catalog. We checked the trunk wells, the rear quarter panels, the heater box, and every hollow space my father might have used. Nothing appeared. At 8, a bank reviewer arrived and spent 3 hours testing the new figures Claire had prepared. The revised fleet margins, canceled subscriptions, and parts controls held up under every question. "The shop meets our operating requirements," she said before leaving, "but Blue Ridge Mobility has offered to buy your note. You have 10 business days to refinance." Claire watched her car disappear. "Parker knows we are searching." Luis entered carrying the Mustang's original radio. "This has no business weighing 6 pounds," he said. We opened the metal case. Behind the tuner sat a small sealed data drive wrapped in black tape. My father had bought the car at a Bennett Knox liquidation auction 5 years earlier. He must have found the device during a radio repair, assumed it belonged to the former owner, and hidden it until he could return it. Claire stared at the drive. "That may contain every transaction Parker tried to erase." "Then we call the investigator." She did not move. "What?" I asked. "If the files include signatures from my office, they may prove I approved payments I did not understand. They could clear you and still destroy me. You said you wanted the truth." "I do." "That does not mean you are not allowed to be afraid." She looked at me with the exhausted honesty she had brought through my door. "I am terrified." I held out my hand. "Then we do it terrified." She placed the drive in my palm. We called Special Agent Naomi Bell, the investigator handling the Bennett Knox fraud case. She arrived with a forensic technician and documented the discovery. The drive was encrypted, but the serial number matched hardware purchased by the company's accounting division. Before Naomi left, she warned us not to discuss it. Parker arrived that night. The shop alarm sounded at 2:14 in the morning. I lived 7 minutes away. Claire lived closer at Mavis's apartment, but I called and told her to stay there. She arrived before I did. Her car was parked across the entrance with its headlights aimed at the office. Parker stood beside the broken side door, one hand inside his coat. "Claire," he said, "tell him to give me the drive." I stepped between them. "It is already with federal investigators." His expression changed. "You are lying." "You taught me to recognize that tone," Claire said. Her voice shook, but she remained beside me. "It is the one you use when consequences arrive." Parker pulled his hand from his coat. He held no gun, only a tire iron, but fear does not wait to classify weapons. He moved toward the office. Luis's truck came through the lot, followed by a sheriff's cruiser. Claire had called both of them while driving. Parker stopped. The deputy ordered him to drop the iron. He looked at Claire as if betrayal were something only other people committed. "You ruined your family for him," he said. "No," she replied. "I stopped ruining myself for you." He dropped the tire iron. Police charged him with breaking and entering, attempted destruction of evidence, and violating the conditions of his federal release. The investigators later recovered messages connecting Blue Ridge Mobility's offer to Parker's attorney. Blue Ridge withdrew, and our bank refinanced the note. The drive proved Parker had used his administrator account to create transactions under my credentials. It also showed that Claire had approved payments after he altered their descriptions. She was not charged, but she still faced the choices that had made the fraud possible. At the receivership hearing, Claire testified for 6 hours. She admitted that ambition, family loyalty, and fear had made her ignore warnings she should have investigated. She did not present herself as another victim of Parker. She named the decisions that belonged to her. When she left the courthouse, reporters surrounded her. I waited near the steps, far enough away that she could choose whether to come to me. She did. "You heard everything?" she asked. "Yes." "Do you still want me at the shop?" "Yes." "As your consultant?" "No." Her face closed slightly. I took the partnership agreement from my jacket. "I want you to buy 20% of Cole Motor Works over 5 years. Using your performance bonus and whatever settlement you receive, equal authority on financial decisions, separate legal representation, a clause requiring mediation if either of us tries to make a major choice alone." Claire read the first page twice. "You prepared this before my testimony." "I prepared it because of your testimony." "What if I had lied?" "Then I would have torn it up." She looked toward the courthouse doors. "You are offering ownership to a woman who arrived asking for a paycheck. I told you on the first day. I was never looking for another employee." A laugh escaped her, soft and unsteady. "And the other position?" she asked. "Still open." "You are unusually confident for a man who has not taken me on a date. That can be corrected." She closed the agreement. Dinner. Friday. No business discussion for the first 30 minutes. 45. 35. Done. Our first date ended with takeout barbecue in the unfinished Mustang after a storm flooded the road and the restaurant lost our reservation. "You bring all your dates to vehicles without seats?" Claire asked. "Only former executives." She smiled, then asked, "When did you know?" "That I loved you?" She nodded. "The software conversion?" "You fell asleep at the conference table. I put my jacket over you and spent 20 minutes pretending the temperature controls required my full attention. I woke up." I turned toward her. "You did?" "I kept my eyes closed because I wanted to see whether you would touch me." "I did not." "I know. That was part of the problem." "Why?" "Because I wanted you to ask. I wanted one person in my life to want something from me that was not a result, a connection, or an advantage. I thought asking would put your career at risk. So you decided for me." I nodded. Apparently we learned the same bad habit from different families. She wiped a drop of rain from the dashboard. "I loved you too," she said. "I chose Parker because loving you felt like stepping outside every plan I had been given. And now? Now I have no plan." "That sounds dangerous." "It feels honest." I kissed her then, slowly enough that either of us could stop. She touched my face with one hand and held the front of my shirt with the other, as though the moment required both tenderness and evidence. When we separated, she rested her forehead against mine. "I am not moving into your house," she said. "I did not ask." "You were about to." "I was going to ask whether you wanted more barbecue." "Good." "Do you?" "Yes." That was how our relationship began. Not with the sentence about wanting a wife, but with two people learning that wanting did not create ownership. The legal case lasted another year. Parker pleaded guilty to fraud, identity theft, and obstruction. Claire's father retired after asking why she had chosen strangers over family. She answered, "I chose the people your decisions treated as expendable." At the shop, partnership was harder than romance and better for both of us. We hired 2 apprentices, made Luis training director, and expanded the hardship fund without asking employees to finance our generosity. We finished the Mustang the following spring. The paint was deep red, the chrome restored, the engine rebuilt. On the first drive, Claire sat beside me with the windows down while the Blue Ridge Mountains turned purple in the evening light. "My father would have liked you," I said. "You cannot know that. He respected anyone who corrected me. Then he would have adored me." We stopped at an overlook. In the glove compartment, I had placed the old gas receipt with his grocery list and a new envelope beside it. Claire opened the envelope. Inside was no ring. It was a revised partnership agreement granting her 30% ownership after we exceeded our 2-year targets. She looked at me. "This is what you put in an envelope on a scenic drive? You told me business and romance require separate decisions." "That is irritatingly accurate." "There is another envelope under the seat." She found the second one and opened it. Inside was a simple ring that had belonged to Mavis's mother. Claire covered her mouth. "I have a question," I said. "It is not a job offer, and it is not a request for you to promise you will never leave. I know now that marriage is not security against loss." Her eyes filled. "It is a choice we make freely and keep making honestly. Claire Bennett, will you marry me?" She looked at the partnership agreement, then at the ring. You separated the documents. I am learning. You included independent legal review. You trained me well. She laughed through tears. Yes, she said, to both offers. We married 6 months later in the shop after closing. Mavis hung white lights between the lifts. Luis wore a suit and complained that ties were unsafe near rotating equipment. June's children placed flowers inside polished hubcaps. The Mustang waited outside, finished at last. Marriage did not make trust automatic. Claire still became quiet when she feared disappointing me. I still tried to solve problems before admitting they frightened me. Sometimes she worked late without telling me. Sometimes I heard disagreement and mistook it for departure. We learned to stop. We learned to ask, are you protecting me or are you deciding for me? That question saved us more than once. 3 years after Claire entered the shop with a broken umbrella and 11 days of motel money, Cole Motor Works expanded into the empty warehouse next door. We added a restoration program, an apprenticeship classroom, and a small office with 2 desks facing each other. Every anniversary, Claire places a resume on my desk. Under qualifications, she lists financial strategy, crisis management, vendor negotiation, and patience with a husband who still misfiles warranty forms. I conduct a formal interview. What position are you seeking? I ask. Wife, partner, and majority? Majority vote against foolish expansion. You are not the majority. I have Mavis. That is unfair influence. It is excellent governance. Then she asks whether the job is permanent. I give her the same answer every year. No position between 2 people is permanent because of a contract. We choose it again tomorrow. She takes my hand. The first time Claire asked me for a job, I answered with a sentence that embarrassed both of us. I thought I wanted a wife because a wife sounded like someone who could not leave. What I actually wanted was a partner who was free to leave and chose to stay. Just as I was free to hold on to my anger and chose, slowly, to put it down. Forgiveness did not mean pretending Claire had never failed me. Love did not mean rewarding sacrifice or rescuing her from consequences. We rebuilt trust the same way we rebuilt the Mustang, by naming the damage, replacing what could not be saved, repairing what could, and never hiding rust beneath new paint. The woman who once ended my career became the person who helped me build a business worthy of the life around it. The man she once protected without permission became the husband who finally learned that protection without trust is only another form of control. Neither of us arrived innocent. We arrived willing to tell the truth and remain for the work afterward. That was enough to begin. So let me ask you, can trust become stronger after betrayal when both people accept responsibility? Or does some damage change a relationship forever? Share your thoughts below, and please like, subscribe, and join us for more stories about love, accountability, and the second chances people build together.